Welcome back to another episode of Norse Studies with Zakk. We're going over the culture of the Teutons. If you haven't watched any of my episodes, they're in 10-minute intervals. We're just reading this together. Feel free to start at any episode that you've missed. Go back through my page. You can catch up with us. It's pretty easy. We're just going to go through this book together, kind of discern what Wilhelm Grönbeck is trying to say about Norse culture. He has but one view of man asserting himself, maintaining his honor and his calls. All that moves within a man must be twisted round until it becomes associated with honor, before he can grasp it. All his passion is thrust back and held, until it finds its way out in that one direction. His friendship of man and love of woman never find expression for the sake of the feeling itself. They are only felt consciously as a heightening of the lover's self-esteem and consequently as an increase of responsibility. The simplicity of character shows in his poetry, which is at heart nothing but lays and tales of great avengers, because revenge is the supreme act that concentrates his inner life and forces it out in the light. His poems of vengeance are always intensely human, because revenge to him is not an empty repetition of a wrong done, but a spiritual self-assertion, a manifestation of strength and value, and thus the anguish of an affront or the triumph of victory is able to open up the sealed depths of his mind and suffuse his words with passion and tenderness. So he's kind of saying that the expressions, the emotions that they would express are through action rather than words, which is kind of a romantic thing to think about. It's less of, if someone killed my brother, right? It's not me crying about it. My passion comes from the intensity in which I go after the person who killed my brother, or some relative that's equivalent to that person. So that's how they would explain. That's how they would express their emotion. Whereas now, we don't have those options of. We do have options of honor and things like that, but not in the same way they did. I can't just go out and kill a person who killed someone else. I can't vanquish people. I can't, it's not that type of civilization that we live in. And this is really interesting. I want you guys to remember that I'm learning these things with you. So it's not, I'm not trying to say that I know everything. I'm just, when I come up with an idea of what something means, or it's an epiphany to me, or I think it might be confusing to somebody else, that's when I stop and I talk about this stuff. But the limitation which creates the beauty and strength of Teuton poetry is revealed in the fact that only those feelings and thoughts which make man an avenger and furthers the attainment of revenge are expressed. All else is overshadowed. Woman finds a place in poetry only as a Valkyrie, or as inciting to strife. For the rest, she's included among the ordinary inventory of life. Friendship, the highest thing on earth among the Teutons, is only mentioned when friend joins hands with friend in the strife for honor and restitution. So that's the type of thing. Let's go back to if someone killed my brother, right? If you're truly my friend in the Teutonic culture and someone's killed my brother, you'll show it, because you would come with me and we would go avenge his death. We would go kill together the person that did it. And it wouldn't even be you or it wouldn't be me asking it of you. Once you caught the news, you would probably show up to my doorstep and go do it. That would be the honorable thing to do. Because what happens when somebody comes and kills a family member of yours, right? You would have the same expectation of me. So that's when they're talking about friendship being the highest thing on earth among the Teutons. Because their friendship is doing things for each other out of honor, out of doing the right thing, being there for one another. And if one person's not there for you, then why would you be there for them? That sort of thing. Page 10. There is an abundance of passion in the poetry of the Northmen, but it appears only as a geyser, up and down, never bursting out and flowing forth in lyrical streams, impressive but gray, powerful but sober. His epics are marked by a trustworthy simplicity and restraint of imagination, keeping well within the bounds drawn by the grand reality of a warlike existence. His heroes are a size generally comparable to the heroic figures of everyday life, and their powers are but the least possible in advance of ordinary standards. In life there is none of that fever pulse so characteristic of the Celts that comes susceptibly of the tendency to live every moment at the same pace as one's surroundings, or inability to resist the rhythm of one's environment. The Northman's response to impressions from without is so long in coming that it seems as if his movements were dictated solely from within. An impulse from the world without does nor fall deadly on his soul, but its force is arrested, laid in bonds, on impact with his massive personality. So to me, it's as if the Teutons don't react purely on emotion. They're thoughtful in the things that they do. Alright? This is something that we can learn from. There's a lot of people, especially people today, that practice these type of religious practices. And I heard a guy talking about this the other day. He's a Norse pagan, and and he said something about his honor being tested at work, and if he were to say something about it, then he would get fired. But he felt like it was dishonorable for him not to say anything because he wasn't getting paid properly for his work. Now, I think reacting to those situations, we can learn something from the Teutons. Because the Teutons are going to think, whether or not that whole situation is true, right? Let's take the Teutonic culture. Let's think about this, alright? So that guy is getting paid. That's how he makes his living. That's how he feeds himself and his family, right? So if somebody comes up and they're not paying you correctly, or they're overworking you, or something like that, first of all, I don't think that has much to do with honor. But let's just assume that we think it does have something to do with honor. The Teutons wouldn't act with emotion. Yeah, they're in a crappy situation, right? They're in a situation where they're not getting paid what they should. They're being overworked. However, they're still getting paid. They still have work. They're putting food on the table. So the Teutons aren't just going to act out of emotion and go talk to their boss and lose their job to defend their honor. That's not what they would do. It would be more honorable for them to not act with emotion. Keep doing the work, either find another job, or somehow make things better for themselves within that situation. And sometimes in jobs, we forget that sometimes in our jobs, things are so rough in those moments. You have these little things piling up, and you could deal with this, and you could deal with that, and you could deal with, A, B, C, and D. But when they start piling up together, it starts feeling like a bigger situation, and things start affecting you more and more and more. This is where we can learn from the Teutons. We don't act on our emotions of that moment. We act with honor, and we look at the bigger picture of things. So our impulses are arrested. Whether or not we want to act on them or not, if we want to portray the Teutonic culture or the Norse culture, what we need to do is we need to act more looking, instead of this scope, wider, bigger things, and seeing the bigger picture. I think that's pretty interesting. We learned a good lesson today on that.